Yes, this is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Obama.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's a good day. It's a good show today. I've got planned for you all. Fun times. We've got some fun stories. We've got disaster stories. We have Republican on Republican crime. Always fun. And apparently, be careful what you wish for. That's another theme that we have going on today's show with Republicans, Republican on Republican crime, as I said before. But we also have some other important issues to look into as well, including how employers are trapping people into jobs. I'm not kidding. There was a huge article. We're going to go over it today. We're going to talk about how employers are basically trapping, lower wage workers into jobs that, may be toxic or don't pay them enough, etc., with debt. I'm not kidding. So we have that. And then, of course, we have Republicans admitting that, student loans, we actually really need people to go into debt in order to, get enough fresh bodies for our military. So really, really, disastrous stuff here. So we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to start out with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But before we start out with any of that stuff, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. It helps us out greatly. With that, why don't we dive in? Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that she has introduced articles of impeachment against President Joe Biden. Interesting. So I want to go to a video of her explaining why.
I just introduced articles of impeachment on President Joe Biden. Joe Biden is selling our strategic petroleum reserves. This should never happen. He is draining our reserves and selling our oil, Americans' oil, to foreign countries, and China is the top buyer. China is our enemy. They are not our friend. They're buying Americans' oil. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is our emergency supply for if something goes wrong in this country. It's now down to 434 million barrels of oil. That is nearly half of what it was when President Trump left office. This is an outrage. This is completely wrong, and no president of the United States should be doing this to the American people.
You heard it here. You heard it here. No president should be doing this to the American people. So now let me give you some of the details. So, okay, now Yes, is Joe Biden selling oil from the U.S. Strategic Reserve? Isn't that supposed to be for domestic use? Okay, it turns out that the details here, obviously, Marjorie Greene gets details wrong, but she is right about the fact that he is selling oil from the Strategic Reserve. I'm going to explain how that works. So now, of course, the whole point of the Strategic Reserve is to increase supply on the global market. So now the thought behind that, the idea behind this entire thing is that, okay, so in times where there is tight supply, say you had, for example, back in the 70s, the crisis with oil, right? With the supply of oil being, really small, etc., which, again, we have no issue with that at this point. The United States is the world's top oil exporter, right? But nonetheless, we keep this strategic reserve to then sell to the market to increase supply. That's what happens. Now, the whole point, again, is to lower prices for oil and gas, since, again, you have oil that is traded on global markets. Now, that reserve, as I mentioned, was established in the 70s oil crisis to ensure the U.S. economy would not suffer shocks in times of tight supply. So now, are we in that? Yes. You had Saudi Arabia, you have OPEC that did cut their production, limit their production as a result of COVID. So during COVID, of course, we had very little oil consumption comparative to now, and so that forced prices of gas down, and they lost a lot of money, and so they raised prices to then get some of that money back to make more profit. So now you also had, for things that affect the price, sanctions against Russia for invading Ukraine. Now, look, Russia is a petrostate. They, yes, were a very small part of our supply. I think we imported about 8% of our oil from Russia, but the United States is not the only country in the world. And so them being sanctioned, Europe had actually gotten a lot of their energy from Russia. And so that whole thing has created some price shocks. And so the U.S. decides, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to release some of the oil from the strategic reserve to try to force some of the prices down. And so that's what they're doing. So it's literally exactly what it's made to do. So that said, impeach Biden. Yeah, hey, she goes from her petri dish, right?
Peachtree dish.
To impeaching Biden. So I guess I guess she's upgrading her fruit game. I don't know. But let's go back to that phrase that I said before. No president should ever do something like this, right? To the American people. Well, then I assume then she would be pro-impeaching Donald Trump if he were still in office, because he literally did the exact same thing. This is according to Axios. Sophia Kai, reported this. In Trump's first year as president, the Department of Energy sold about 550,000 barrels from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR, to other countries. So, no, wait, he didn't sell it to American corporations. Well, maybe some of those sales, right? But no, he sold those 550,000 barrels specifically to PetroChina, the state-owned energy giant and China's largest oil producer. Weird. Also, oops. Reuters and S&P Global report showed that the 2017 deal was made for about $28.8 million, priced at $52.30 per barrel. A press release from the Department of Energy also confirms that PetroChina was one of the buyers. Fun. But here's the thing, right? As I mentioned, the United States, already the largest oil producer in the world, largest oil exporter, right? And that oil I got news for you, does not belong to the United States. It belongs to the corporations because, again, with our system of government, with capitalism, you have these, the government saying, okay, you can go ahead and drill here, and then you can just keep the oil and sell it back. In fact, how do you fill the strategic reserve? You buy it from corporations when the prices are low, and you keep it to where when the prices are high, and then you release it. Literally how it works. So again, not American oil. Okay. So now, if Green, and I give you that context because if Green actually wanted to solve this particular problem, well, first you got to actually know what the problem is, what the facts are. I know, difficult, super hard, right? But the next thing would to do would try to ask her, okay, are you then in favor of nationalizing oil? Again, you nationalize oil, you make it America's oil, belongs to the government now, not private corporations, and you can keep it in the United States. My guess is she would say no. Or how about this? If you want to avoid all the oil drama, right, of having to import oil or rely on the global markets, hey, right-wingers, you're against the globalists, right? Well, there's nothing more globalist than oil. So if you wanted to get away from the globalists, well, then you should be in favor of renewable energy. I mean, you can't import sunlight or wind. You can't export those things, right? You can't sell them. Oh, but the reason that they don't want to do that is because that would hurt their donors. Ah, of course. Both, again, under nationalization and getting off fossil fuels, the donors would lose out the most. The giant multinational corporations that control all the fossil fuels. Now, there's one more thing here. And it's just to really show how phony and political this is. Because it has nothing to do with Marjorie Greene actually giving two shits about the average person that is struggling under higher energy prices and inflation. In fact, according to Insider, on July 11th, the Biden administration announced that it had sold 950,000 barrels to Unipec, a U.S. subsidiary of Chinese state-owned oil and gas enterprise Sinopec. So, and again, when that happened, Republican outrage, I'm so mad. Thing is, this is legal under current laws. Yes, you can sell oil to a subsidiary of a foreign company under our current laws. That's how the Trump administration was able to do that legally as well. But see, here's the thing. Right-wingers, they're really focused on this fact. Hunter Biden previously had ties with China's Sinopec through investment fund company BHR Partners. It is not clear, however, according to reports, whether Hunter Biden is still involved with Sinopec, even if, again, remember, this is selling to the highest bidder, right? If they, didn't do that with this company. Now, if they didn't sell the oil to Sinopec because they were the highest bidder, if they gave them a special deal instead to help out Hunter Biden, then that would be a conflict of interest. But that did not happen, so there was no conflict of interest. And so Hunter's spokesperson, of course, also told the New York Times in November that he no longer had any financial interest in BHR Partners. So understand what this is all about. This is about China and Hunter Biden and the laptop from hell. Again, everything that both administrations had done in selling oil from the strategic reserve to, foreign corporations is legal, even if you disagree with it, which personally I do. This is a nothing burger. This is just political nonsense. Marjorie Greene is out here with very selective outrage and a bullshit impeachment that, again, will not amount to anything. So, look, if you were wondering what kind of things Republicans plan to do if they get back into power after the midterms, well, this is your sneak peek. Okay. Moving on. Former President Donald Trump has gotten everything that he asked for concerning the case surrounding the classified materials that were found at Mar-a-Lago last month. First, Donald Trump got his judge that he appointed in Florida, Judge Cannon, who granted him a request for a special master to review those seized documents. Now, Trump also got the pick Raymond Dearie. Judge Raymond Dearie is that special master. He said, I want that guy. And they said, okay, here you go. Everything that he wanted. And yet, he's upset. Because of course he is. Now, it turns out Mr. Dearie has frustrated Trump's legal team by demanding a little bit of evidence. Let me give you the details. On Monday, Trump's legal team refused a requirement set forth by the special master that Trump's team provide details about his claim to have declassified documents that were seized during the FBI in the search of Mar-a-Lago. According to a letter filed by Trump's legal team, they will not comply because they say, and this is the best part, that it would weaken their case against a subsequent indictment. Oh, you want to see evidence that Trump had classified these documents? You know what? We can't do that right now because that will actually hurt us. Oh, is that it? Oh, wow. Now let me read the text of that. The draft plan requires the plaintiff disclose specific information regarding declassification to the court and to the government, which would make sense if you're out there claiming, hey, these documents, they weren't classified, they were declassified, and that's why it was totally legal for me to have that at Mar-a-Lago at my house where I live. It's totally fine. Okay, well, let's see some evidence of that. Ooh, can't do it. Sorry. Quote, we respectfully submit that the time and place for affidavits or declarations would be in connection with the Rule 41 motion that specifically alleges declassification as a component of its argument for return of property. Otherwise, the special master process will have forced the plaintiff to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment without such a requirement being evident in the district court's order. So again, if Trump's team gives them the evidence that Trump had declassified the documents, as they claim they did, they're like admitting that it would weaken their own case. Amazing. Now, of course, that means to me, they obviously didn't declassify the documents properly. Trump didn't. And therefore, had illegally retained classified materials that the government had requested several times that he send back. In fact, Trump's legal filings, their team's legal filings, have contained no mention of the seized documents having been declassified in advance or otherwise, as Trump had claimed repeatedly in public. Now, the filing pretty much shows that they're desperate to wait out the clock, to drag out the proceedings by saying, oh, we can't do it now, but we can do it later. We can do it later. We'll show you the proof at a later time. Well, why not now? What it's good. It'd be good to show now. But it's obvious why they're not, because they don't have the evidence. They don't have the proof because it didn't happen. Look, that likely, of course, has Trump furious that his special master plan is not working out. So, if you're at Mar-a-Lago, you might want to watch out for flying hamburgers. It's probably not going to be a good day. Look, Judge Dearie, they picked him, by the way, because he was very deliberate, i.e. slow, right? But in this case, it seems like Judge Dearie is like, no, let's get this going. I got like 13,000 documents to go through. I got till November. Let's get this done. All right. I just need to I need to go through these documents, but I need to know whether or not you declassified them or not. So no, that's not what the Trump team was hoping to hear. No, he wanted Deary to drag out the process as long as possible. And my guess is, and this is my speculation, is that he wants to wait for the midterms to be over with and hope that the Republicans take the House and the Senate and put a stop to investigations or to gum up the works as much as they can, with as much power as they can, until maybe Donald Trump announces a presidential bid. And then who knows what kind of ways they'll attempt to delay these things. But again, that is my speculation, right? That said, it makes sense as to why the Trump team, even when getting exactly what they asked for, are now objecting to that very thing. Just talk about a hilarious backfire. Great. And again, the reason that the Trump team does not want to actually say and go to court and present evidence is because, well, they would have to lie under oath. That would get them in trouble. Obviously, there's penalties for perjury. Which, again, makes me believe, of course he did it. He took classified material. He lied about having that material. And then when he was caught, he refused to give it back. And of course, this is a mess of his own making. He didn't have to take those documents. But he couldn't help himself because, oh, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. I want the documents. I want the letters, the love letters from Kim Jong-un. Okay, that's fine. That's yours. You can keep those love letters and, do whatever you want with them. I don't care. But don't take the classified documents. Don't take the nuclear documents. They don't belong to you. Give them back. For God's sakes, give them back. And he wouldn't. And he wouldn't. And so that's why the FBI had to do what they did. You think Christopher Wray wanted to do that? He's a Trump appointee. The last thing the guy wanted to do was set up a raid in Mar-a-Lago. But understand that it was months and months of Trump and his lawyers saying, no, we don't have documents. No, I swear we sent them back. All the other classified documents that we had taken. And then we found out again from a whistleblower inside of Mar-a-Lago that no, he did not return those documents. They had to do this. They had to. All because Donald Trump just literally could not do an incredibly simple thing. Give the stuff back that he stole. Look. It's not a conspiracy to go after Donald Trump. It's Trump doing this to himself. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now, look, if our legal system actually ends up working for once, well, then Donald Trump might be on track to get the stupidest prize of all. But that, of course, is an if. All right, let's go to Lindsey Graham. The big box, the biggest box. The biggest box of documents. Tremendous. Okay. The guy's an asshole when he is cheering for the FBI. True. Very, very true. All right. Senator Lindsey Graham is not very popular on the Republican side and is actually being challenged for his little stunt at putting forward a national abortion ban. Here he is on Fox and Friends defending that ban. Take a look.
My position is 15 weeks. France is at 14 weeks. Exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother, and states can do more if they want to, up to 15 weeks. I want to be a nation that's civilized. I don't want to be China. I don't want to be North Korea
Nobody
when it
does.
comes to the unborn.
You know, Senator, there are so many Republicans who are pro-life, but there are also a lot of Republicans who believe in federalism and states' rights and on things like deciding their own laws on abortion.
Sure.
And this federal abortion ban would go against that.
This is not a states' rights issue. This is a human right issue. I don't care what California does on most things. I care here. I am not going to sit on the sidelines in Washington, D.C. and tell the pro-life community Washington is closed for business.
Look, I care about states' rights, except, on this issue, I feel so very, very deeply, about the issue of life, or at least, I have for like the last month.
I think states should decide the issue of marriage, and states should decide the issue of abortion. I think we should have a law at the federal level that would say after 15 weeks, no abortion on demand.
Oops. I love that video because, again, this is Lindsey Graham versus Lindsey Graham. Literally, this is not years apart, okay? Because people change their position over time, and I get that, right? People evolve, or in the case, I guess, of Lindsey Graham, they devolve. And no, it's not years, not decades. It's like literally a month. A month! The quickest turnaround in history. Amazing. But as Carly Shimkus, who was the other host, the female host there, was like, oh yeah, no, we don't want to be like China. No, we don't, no, not at all, no. But she correctly pointed out that there's a lot of Republicans that are incredibly split on this issue, and Lindsey Graham, again, has been just getting raked over the coals by people like Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, even on Fox News. Here's some of that.
It's like Lindsey Graham? When has he ever showed that he gives a damn about the pro-life cause? It's almost like he wants Republicans to lose. That's the conspiracy theory that I would actually subscribe to here. He wants Republicans to lose. This is sabotage. It's the only way to explain it.
Why is Lindsey Graham, 25 days out from ballots going out, galloping in and saying we need a federal abortion ban? Really, where have you been, Lindsey Graham? That feels like election interference.
Republicans are very angry at you. You're getting a lot coming for this.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it on that day? Not great timing. Don't you see that? No one's saying you need to sit on the sidelines, but yesterday wasn't the day to do that. Yesterday was the day they lost all momentum when this inflation thing punched them right in the face, and you gave them an out. A lot of people don't like that. You could have done it on any other day, just like you could have delayed the whole press conference, like Joe should have delayed that stupid party.
You love to see it. By the way, later on in that same interview, Waters was like, that's stupid politics, right? Yes! Yes, it is! Look, that's why this is so great, because you got Republicans out there understand that this is exactly what they wanted. They wanted to ban abortion. I mean, for years, all I've been hearing about is from Republicans is, we're pro-life. We're pro-life. We got to ban abortion. We got to ban it. Yeah, for the moment of conception. That's right. As soon as the sperm meets that egg, it's a life. It's a human being. Got to ban abortion. Got to ban it. Ban it now. And then now suddenly they're like, no, Lindsey Graham, what are you doing? No, don't. The 15-week abortion ban. We can't do that. We're too close to the election. No, stop. And look, there's a reason that they're doing this. And it's because, again, this should be super obvious to everyone. This is unpopular. Banning abortion is incredibly unpopular with the vast majority of Americans. Nearly 70% of Americans are like, actually, no, we wanted to keep Roe v. Wade. We think that was the good position. That was understand that was the centrist position. That was a compromise position. Where, yes, you had states that could, after a certain point of time, impose abortion bans. That's what Roe decided. But then you had Republicans that wanted to take it far, far further. And again, completely get rid of it, except they got greedy. They overreached, and now they seem to be paying for it at the polls. As several different races, you had Republicans that lost because their Democratic counterparts were running on pro-choice positions. And then, I've shown you videos of different Republican candidates that have backed away from that. I mean, you had Republicans completely scrub-a-dub-dub their websites of all mentions of being 100% pro-life. They're not like, oh, no, exceptions for rape and incest? Yes. Oh, great. Yes, of course, we can do that. Yes. 15 weeks sounds fantastic. We could do that. It's unpopular. When you run on things that are unpopular, turns out people will vote against you. They have woken up women as a voting bloc and galvanized them all across the political spectrum. You conservative women that are like, hey, no, I don't want the government, big government, controlling my body. I'm not interested in that. I thought we were supposed to be against big government. This is bullshit. And look, by the way, the fact that they're losing so bad on this issue is why Lindsey Graham and these Republican candidates have to lie about this now. They say the Democrats want abortion up to the moment of birth, and then in some cases, even afterwards. No, that would be literal murder. Show me one example of that being proposed at all. One example. One proposed bill or amendment that says, oh, yeah, no, yeah, perfectly fine, healthy fetus, up to the point of pregnancy, you gotta kill it. No, that's not happening. That is complete and utter lie. They're lying to the American people. Lindsey Graham does it numerous times in every single interview, and every single time he talks about abortion, he brings that up. Complete and utter liar. Absolute liar. No, you know what the position is for Democrats? The default position? Roe. That was the default. That was the default position for Democrats. That's why they're screaming at Lindsey Graham. Stop it, please. You're going to make us lose the elections. We got to wait till afterwards. No, the Republican position is extreme. And look, they hold unpopular positions, and they know it. This is the best example of that. And the thing is, most of the time, they seem to hide their positions until they get into the power, right? And then they force it onto the rest of us. Again, we literally saw that with the end of Roe. But then some of them, like Graham, they've decided that for whatever reason, they wanted to get greedy. And well, that's going to cost them. You know it. You all know it. All right. Moving on. Republicans have said the quiet part out loud after President Joe Biden canceled some small amount of student loan debt. In fact, you had 19 Republican members of the House of Representatives last week signing a letter to Biden expressing some concern. Oh, there's concern over some of the unintended consequences of the president's plan to cancel about $10,000 to $20,000 in federal student loan debt for borrowers in lower to upper middle income families. Now, the letter counts the GI Bill, which covers all in-state tuition and fees at public colleges and universities, as, quote, some of the most successful recruiting incentives for the U.S. military and a driving factor in many individuals' decisions to join the armed forces. Oh, and said that by forgiving such a wide swath of loans for borrowers, you are removing any leverage the Department of Defense maintained as one of the fastest and easiest ways of paying for higher education. Oh my God, they admit it. Do they understand? Do they understand what they just admitted? What they just said? Yeah, we use the military to, basically reach out to people who are in massive amounts of debt or will take on massive amounts of debt. We target those people to get them to fight our BS wars. And now the Republicans are saying, oh, how dare you destroy our most valuable recruiting tool, which, by the way, this doesn't. Okay. How are you going to convince young people to shoot at brown people overseas if they're not in crippling student loan debt? I mean, that's what's going on. Look, a lot of us already knew this, but understand I think the majority of the people didn't, or they didn't quite make the connection, right? And look, understand, the military is really good at propaganda. Because generally most people will think, oh, well, of course, the military, the U.S. military, protect us. They're good. And the soldiers that join up, they do so out of love for country, right? Patriotism, right? No, in reality, the military in this country, more often than not, at least in other parts of the world, does more harm than good. Again, look to an example here, and it wasn't always like that, but you had the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that were both incredible debacles, and they did so for no damn reason. There's no reason we should have went in to Iraq. They had nothing to do with 9/11, but it was something that George W. Bush wanted to do. Okay, and in Afghanistan, again, we had no reason to do a literal occupation and then attempt to nation build, because we saw exactly what happened as soon as we left. It went right back to what it used to be, and that's exactly why a lot of us had argued not to go in the first place. This is what's going to happen, debacles. But see, here's the thing, though. A lot of defense contractors got real rich off those wars. So, but again, the country, the population in the United States, we are no safer. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is the fault of the troops. No, of course not. No, what's at fault here is the very incentive structure for what is now the military-industrial complex. It's no longer understand about defending the country. It's about making money. It's about exploitation. It's about militarism and imperialism. That's what we do now. And that's unfortunate. And so, look, the more pointless wars we fight, the more weapons are needed to fight those wars, which is obvious. And the more weapons that are sold, the more certain people make money. While, of course, you do have the people who are fighting these wars that come back scarred mentally and physically. Look, we were warned early on about the military-industrial complex, yet those warnings were not heeded at all whatsoever. So now, that said, there's a time in this country where college was free, or at the very least, incredibly inexpensive, because you had states that covered the costs. I'm going to tie this in a minute here. So that was back in the 1960s when you had truly, free or affordable college in the United States. Now, back in the 60s, we also had Vietnam. Vietnam, if you can remember, well, they got soldiers through the draft. The draft was very unpopular, especially on college campuses. There were a lot of Vietnam anti-war protests on college campuses. So you had Richard Nixon and, of course, Ronald Reagan, who was governor of California during that time. Well, they decided that, we don't really like the fact that you have these college students that are anti-war, that are turning public sentiment against our war, basically, against, Vietnam. And so, these college students, they're getting uppity, and we think they also might be pro-communist. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to find a way to shut that down and have people support our war. And what's even better is if we get rid of the draft, well, I mean, we have to have something to replace it, right? But first, we got to get rid of the draft because it's incredibly unpopular and it's actually going to hurt my re-election chances or my election chances, right? So what they did, and again, this started with Ronald Reagan, is that they defunded colleges and universities at the state level. Now, that predictably drove up the prices for students, the costs for students that are now out of pocket. But it's kind of brilliant because the government said, never fear, the GI Bill, we'll pay for it. But all you got to do is sign your life away in the military. Brilliant in its brutality. For one, you make sure by defunding colleges that higher education is unattainable for poor people. Only the wealthy, only the elites get to go to college. That said, if you don't have a draft, who's going to volunteer for the military then? Well, it won't be rich people because they can afford college and they're not going to get drafted. But who's left out? Poor people. Poor people are left out. They can't afford an education. And then they see this beautiful GI Bill and they think, well, goddamn, I want a higher education. I want to go and get out of poverty. I guess I'm going to have to join the military. Oh, look, we got a signing bonus too. Oh, I guess. Aside from a few notable examples, rich people do not join the military because they don't have to. And they don't want to. So, that said, I want to give you some progressive responses to this admission that I think are really, really good. Poet Stefan Muhammad tweeted this, quote, every time I see a politician just come out and say, we can't forgive student debt because we'll lose one of our best military recruiting tools, I have to stop and marvel at the absolute moral repugnance of the sentiment and the audacity of stating it so bluntly. Again, literally admitting it. This is what we're doing. Another person, the group Our Wisconsin Revolution said this on Twitter. The GOP is admitting that the military relies on poor young people to keep the war machine going, and that's why they oppose canceling student debt. The price of a college degree should not be bloodshed or a lifetime of crippling debt. Common Dreams notes that while the Pentagon brass often tout the all-volunteer nature of the U.S. military, critics have noted the poverty draft, which disproportionately affects people of color, is fueled by the student debt crisis, which, by the way, also disproportionately affects people of color. Yes, so you have African Americans, you have black people that take out and have more loans, more student loan debt than their white peers. More student loan debt. And so, oh, look, we'll just, draft them into the military. Now, there's some good news here. And that is, despite record enlistment bonuses, military recruiting is in crisis. According to Army data, up to 70% of potential recruits are disqualified in the first 48 hours due to obesity, low aptitude test scores, or drug use, an increase from previous disqualification rates at 30 to 40%. Now, I say good, not because of the reasons, which are a little disastrous, to be fair, but no, it's good because the military-industrial complex needs to be completely and utterly dismantled. We should not be profiting from war, from death on a mass scale. War should not be a business. War should literally be the last resort. One more point to add here, which is very concerning, and really does kind of counterbalance the other point. According to Common Dreams, during the height of the so-called War on Terror, which was launched in 2001, continues to this day, sadly, The U.S. military made up for recruitment shortfalls by lowering admission standards to allow people with felony convictions, gang members, and racists, but not openly LGBTQ plus aspirants to sign up, resulting in, and this is the disturbing part, widespread infiltration of white supremacists. So, yeah, great, awesome. They also note that deception, falsification of qualifying records, and outright lies were also commonly reported during recruitment by a military when faced with enduring shortfalls, simply extended combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan through compulsory stop-loss orders. And additionally, military recruiters who operate under mottos like first to contact, first to contract, have targeted children as young as 10 years old via pre-junior reserve officers training corps, JROTC and ROTC programs from the elementary school through collegiate levels. I also remember stories where they documented the military running recruitment for children through Twitch streams. So that is also ultimately not good news. But understand that this is what happens when war turns into not defending yourself or defending the country, but into a business for profit. Okay. USAF, come, we welcome racist psychopaths. Oh, God. You know what hurts recruitment? Using soldiers, disposable pawns, and needless conflicts. True. All right. One more job-related disaster. The Great Resignation, which happened as a result of COVID-19, has seen many workers quitting industries as a result of things like poor pay, lack of benefits, bad working conditions, etc., etc. Now, a lot of these workers have gone on to better jobs. Some have been waiting on the sidelines for better jobs, or have gone in for example, some schooling, additional education. Some have even attempted to form or join existing labor unions to fight for better working conditions and pay, etc. All that's good things. However, employers have decided to fight back with a brand new, or I should say, by bringing back an old form of literal indentured servitude. Now you think about that, you hear that, and you think, wait a minute, that's 19th century stuff. No, it's happening now. Truth Out explains. Workers across the United States in fields ranging from nursing to trucking have been discouraged from leaving jobs they don't like or can't afford to keep because employers are now vowing to charge them for training costs if they quit before an arbitrary deadline. Get what this arrangement is called. Literally called traps, or a training repayment agreement provision that is located in many new employment contracts. And it's not necessarily a new phenomenon, as I mentioned, and not even a new in this country. It's been around in certain sectors for certain workers since like the 1990s. But what's concerning is that the adoption of traps is, and it really is kind of amazing that it's even called that. But it's being adopted by many different workplaces now today. Wow. So now, basically, to summarize that, you sign on to work somewhere, you sign the employment contract, you find out after you start working there that it's a toxic workplace, or, they're basically, there's other deficiencies in the workplace. Maybe they're not safe. Maybe they're not taking safety seriously. Maybe there's some sort of issue there, or maybe you just find out that you don't like the job. Well, too bad for you. You can't really quit. I mean, sure, you could quit, but then you get charged not hundreds, but sometimes thousands of dollars in so-called training costs. You know, the costs that they apparently allegedly incurred to train you for the job, which is insane. Now, this first got attention from lawmakers as a result of a class action lawsuit against the pet store chain PetSmart, as well as reporting from a watchdog group called the Student Borrower Protection Center. Earlier this month, the Senate Banking Committee held hearings examining the agreements and other forms of employer-driven debt. In June, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also launched an investigation of employment arrangements that led to workers owing money to their bosses. Now, generally, if you have to owe money to your boss, that usually means that you're in some sort of pyramid scheme. But in this case, no. Now it's just normal workplaces like, again, PetSmart, or even, being a nurse or a truck driver. And look, I've talked about truck drivers before being on the hook for their rigs, being forced to buy or lease their trucks, leaving them with a massive amount of debt and no way to pay that off reliably. So again, horrifying. So let me give you some of the details of some of the people who went through this. On September 7th, 2 workers appeared before the banking committee and explained how much they're being charged by the companies that they had worked for. Breanne Scally, lead plaintiff in the class action against PetSmart, told lawmakers about how she was left owing about $5,500 to the company for a dog grooming academy that was initially advertised to her as free. Free, but only if you work for us for long enough. But if you don't, we're going to charge you $5,500. But wait, registered nurse Cassie Pennings also testified about being stuck with about $7,500. More than 6 months' rent, she says, after leaving one hospital job because she was appalled by the staffing ratios during COVID-19 and did not want to be complicit in neglecting her patients while on the job. I have talked before about staffing shortages, about nurses, especially ones that have gone on strike, saying that we literally do not have the staff and the tools to be able to do our jobs effectively. I remember one nurse staff saying this, that there would be call lights that would be blinking for 10 minutes or more for somebody who, those are supposed to be answered as soon as possible. Like, for example, if someone, an oxygen hose comes loose, which is a very dangerous thing. You can't leave that going for 10 minutes, or a patient soils themselves, right? You don't want to be in that situation for 10 minutes or more. But unfortunately, with the staffing shortages caused by COVID and also by hospitals not wanting to actually have better working conditions and pay, well, they're now, going through these things. And so if you work there, expect to experience massive amounts of burnout by being overworked so much. That's the current medical field in this country. Disastrous. Now, Pennings testified that, quote, despite being one of the most profitable healthcare systems in the nation, my former employer responded to cries for help from the front line with breakfast burritos and free water bottles. No additional staff to help out, but here's a burrito. Enjoy. Oh, well, thank you. Can I have another? No, you're limited to one burrito. One burrito. That's it. Wow. Now, Scally recalled how one of her managers told her that she could work her way out of debt simply by upselling or convincing customers to buy more pet grooming products and services from PetSmart. She said, okay, I'll do that. Sure. She then ended up upselling about $6,000 worth of products. Now, did that make her debt go away? No. She was still charged the full amount for the debt, months after she left the job. So they literally like, oh yeah, you can just upsell that. Yeah, we'll take care of that. Oh, never mind, sucker. Ah. And then we made an additional $6,000. Now we're gonna get the rest from you. Isn't that amazing? Now they also testified that the amounts that they were charged for so-called training were absolutely arbitrary. Scally said this, I thought that I was going to get important and valuable training or grooming, okay, but it wasn't anything like that. I didn't get any kind of license or accreditation or anything, and my actual training was only a few weeks. So this is kind of like, say like McDonald's, right, charges you $3,000 to show you how to operate the grill. I mean, you kind of need to be able to do your job, right, if you're in the kitchen. So, but if you leave McDonald's, they're going to be like, oh, that'll be $3,000 for this immense amount of training that we have given you. What? Look, you taught me how to operate the fryer. I mean, you put the fry in, and then you dunk it down, and then you take it back, and then you dump it, right? That's the fryer. That's the fryer. What are you doing? Charging me $6,000 or $3,000 for that? What? Absolutely ridiculous. But again, it's not even about the so-called value of the training that they received. No. This is as David Seligman, one of Scally's attorneys, told the Senate Banking Committee in that hearing, quote, traps are basically used by managers to leave workers stuck with low pay, dangerous conditions, abusive treatment, or work that does not allow them to advance professionally. And he's absolutely right about that. That's the point. Instead of fixing the problems, which have made people want to leave those jobs in the first place, these employers have just said, no, we're just going to trap people in terrible jobs. That's what we're going to do because we can. We have hit the part in late stage capitalism where they have brought back indentured servitude to the masses. Remember, they originally started this in prisons. Okay. There's at least in this country, the history goes farther back, going back into Europe and the UK. But I go back to 2015, actually, for a documentary showing how there were inmates in Louisiana State Prison in Angola who were forced to work under the threat of solitary confinement. And typically, if you did work and decided to not spend time in solitary, which is torture, by the way, these inmates were paid as little as 2 cents per hour for full-time work. And they worked not just, making license plates or whatever. No, they worked in the fields. They worked in manufacturing warehouses. They worked in kitchens. They worked in many different places. So now businesses took a look at that and they said, yummy in my tummy. How can we do that outside the workplace? Or how do we do that outside of prison in a workplace? Oh, I know. We can just do that by charging an arbitrary amount for training purposes. Ah, yes, that's it. Yes. Now, Seligman said, look, the law does not permit employers or others to provide a work opportunity in exchange for a worker's promise to indenture themselves to their employer through debt. Oh, but it's not the debt. No, it's training. Training, it costs money. So obviously we have to charge them whatever the hell we think our training is worth if they leave the job. What? That's indentured servitude. What are you talking about? No. Now the response here. I'm sorry. Let me get to one more quote here from Siegelman. He says, quote, these sorts of work arrangements harken back to 19th century peonage used to subjugate former slaves, and they're precisely the kind of exploitation that our anti-trafficking and peonage laws were designed to prohibit. And yet, it's happening. Now, the chair of the committee, Ohio Democrat Sherrod Brown, upon hearing this, had a couple of quotes. He said, the last time I checked, indentured servitude was illegal in the United States. Well, look, so was debtors' prisons. But that they have successfully been able to bring some of that back as well in some states. So I've done stories on debtors' prisons, people who, had a debt and they were taken to court. They couldn't, and sometimes weren't even notified or didn't get the notifications to go to court for a private debt. Oh, but since you didn't show up to court, well, now that's a criminal offense. Now we're gonna have to throw you in prison. You're gonna throw you in jail until you can pay that debt off. That's modern days debtors' prisons, but that's supposed to be abolished in the United States as well. And so if they can bring that back, of course they were going to bring back indentured servitude. They're always trying to find out different ways to screw over workers and to force them to work for less. They are absolutely relentless in doing so. In fact, here's what Sherrod Brown says. It looks like some enterprising companies are rebranding it with these new employment contracts. His office told Truth Out that the lawmaker is currently considering legislation that would rein in the use of traps by employers, and that he would work with the Consumer Protection Bureau to ensure that consumers are protected from predatory consumer products like traps. But as of now, it is legal in courts generally. Unfortunately, this is according to a recent legal analysis published last year. They found that courts generally uphold the agreements and challenges brought under anti-kickback provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act, the law that establishes a federal minimum wage. So now that said, there is good news and another way to challenge it. And this comes from the author of the very same study. Loyola Marymount Associate Law Professor Jonathan F. Harris said that another type of legal challenge might prove more successful. Courts could refuse to enforce trap contract language under the unconscionability doctrine. That is a legal principle that allows judges to void agreements containing unreasonable terms dictated by a party with superior bargaining power. Now, again, unfortunately, that would require the judge to actually want to side and to use that legal doctrine. We don't know. I mean, it depends on the judge if they are poor corporate or not. If you're dealing, for example, like someone like Judge Neil Gorsuch rules on behalf of corporations 100% of the time. That's literally why he was picked. That said, theoretically, yes. I mean, you can't argue that employers generally, don't generally have more bargaining power, right? I mean, you can't argue against that. Of course they have more bargaining power. You literally have to work or else you don't get to pay the bills. Now, another thing here is unions were a check on this, right? But until recently, union power has fallen dramatically in this country. And while there is a resurgence in labor power, so far, still relatively small. And, while union membership is still, again, relatively small, despite this, the resurgence in labor, corporations had been ramping this up, the use of these traps, since they started, again, being used in the 90s for highly specialized workers. So, ultimately, man, it's not good. This is really messed up, the fact that these employers are able to do this so far with unchecked impunity. We need to fight back. Now, I think we need worker co-ops. I think we need worker protection laws, unionized workplaces, and I hope to see more democracy in the workplace. I want to see more worker-owned businesses that won't do this. I want to see things like more worker co-ops. Those are the things that we need to do to fight against this stuff. If we don't, we're going to continue to slide further into the newest Gilded Age, which is, hey, great for companies, corporations, but real bad for us workers. Okay. Well, that was a lot of information I threw at you. So, all right, let's see. Go to Super Chat here. Jonathan Leiter says Tuesday is now Burrito Tuesday. Enjoy too. I prefer Taco Tuesday, honestly. I'm a taco guy. I like tacos. Happy Mathis with the very kind $5. Thank you very much. Get that. Holy cow! I did not check Twitch. So let me go back in here and take a look. Bring up the Twitch stream. Okay. Beth Graham 76, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. Sonic Fear, thank you for resubbing for month of tier 1. Let's go, Dark Brandon. To which I say,
Oh yeah. They are about to find out.
all right. I had to get those. I had to get those sound clips. They're fun. Yeah, okay. That's what we got here on Twitch and on YouTube. By the way, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Please subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. Super chats, become a member, all that wonderful stuff that helps us to continue to do the show. All right, and to bring you some of this disastrous information that you know you love hearing about. Which do I get more from YouTube or Twitch? I'm not entirely sure, actually. So it's your it's your choice. If you have a Prime sub, by the way, or if you have a Prime account on Twitch, you can subscribe for free. So that's cool. Susan Jones says workers need labor laws that support employees and forming unions. The countries have them. America doesn't even have statutory right to vacation time and is way behind the times. I agree with all that. 100%, Susan. 100%. Thank you for the comment. Lisa's Arnick says, what, no pizza party? I'm assuming that's talking about the bottled water and burritos that they get. Oh, that I remember. I actually did get, when I was working at the factory, a pizza party. Literally, we broke records on production, and all we got was a goddamn pizza party. Look, it was when I was young. After that, it was like, all that work for a goddamn pizza party? Are you kidding me? No. That's when my slide began. You know, boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time. Screw you guys. Pizza party. Jeff is rolling in so much money that he doesn't know which subs it's coming from. Honestly, no. I wish I was rolling in money, but I'm really not. I'm just like very lazy. Okay, anyway, and I don't check things as much as I should. All right, but anyway, look, that's enough. Why don't we raid on Twitch here into another channel? Oh, look, Franifio's on. So that's Francesca Fiorentini. So we're right into that. Looks like she's got some guests here. So that should be fun to watch. For everybody else, thank you for going around the nation with me today. Really, really appreciate it. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. See you back here tomorrow.
Big, massive dumps. People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? Really?
Peachtree dish.
Millions in Venezuela.
And why their due process rights are being so flagrantly and horrifically violated.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
We will keep kicking your ass every